our lesson for tonight is about forecasting. 预测. Okay. Managerial economics also has the forecasting topic, but it focuses the forecasting on this subject focuses more on managerial economics aspect.
对这一主题的预测更多的集中在管理经济学方面。
Okay. So introduction. So a famous economist once remarked, we have two classes of forecasters, those who don't know and those who don't know what they don't know.
我们有两类预测者，那些不知道的人和那些不知道他们不知道的事情的人。
Okay. The thing about the key characteristic of forecasting is that nothing is for certain.
预测的关键特征是没有什么是确定的。
没有什么事情. So we don't know what will happen. Maybe the forecast for the economy. The forecast of the economy will not translate to the actual figures. However, it will be helpful in identifying the forecast.
我对经济的预测不会转化为实际数字，
Okay.
但是这将有助于确定预测。
Okay. So experienced economists know that economic forecasting is fraught with uncertainty. 不确定性. Okay. So to see why, consider the interrelated nature of economic forecasts. So predicting trends. 趋势.
趋势
Okay. In macroeconomic conditions and their impact on costs or demand for company goods and services is one of the most difficult responsibilities that the management faces. Management should be able to predict or forecast or identify the demand for their goods or services. It is not easy because there are several factors that will affect the outcome of your forecast. Hi. How shall we? Okay. Okay. So predicting the effects of changes in the competitive microeconomic environment can also be daunting. It is not easy to determine the amount or the demand of your products or services. That is a possible great competitive advantage that an entity can possess.
确定产品或服务需求的金额并不容易，这是一个实体可以拥有的可能的巨大竞争优势。
So you have to use it to your own advantage. Okay? Now, predicting the effects of changes in the competitive microeconomic environment can also be daunting. However, forecasting is a necessary task.
预测是必要的。
Okay. So there are two types of forecasting applications. We have the macroeconomic forecasting and the microeconomic forecasting. Macroeconomic forecasting involves predicting aggregate measures of economic activity at the international, national, and regional or state levels. Okay.
观经济预测涉及预测国际、国家和区域或州一级经济活动的总体衡量标准。
Okay. I'll show the translation later. Okay, no problem. They are important because they are used by businesses and individuals. They are used by businesses and individuals to make day-to-day operating decisions as well as long-term planning decisions.
企业和个人使用它们来制定今天的运营决策以及长期规划。
Okay. On the other hand, microeconomic forecasting involves the prediction of economic data at the industry, firm, or plant, or even the product levels.
另一方面，微观经济预测涉及在行业、公司、工厂或产品层面预测经济数据。
Trained and experienced analysts often find it easier to accurately forecast macroeconomic trends than macroeconomic trends. Trends than macroeconomic trends. Okay. So there's a slight mistake.
训练有素且经验丰富的分析师经常发现，准确预测宏观经济趋势比微观经济趋势更容易。
Okay. This one is microeconomic. There's a slight mistake. But yeah. I'll let you read. Okay, here it is. So, how about the forecast techniques? Accurate forecasts require pertinent data that are current, complete, and free from error and bias.
准确的预测需要当前完整的相关数据，并且没有错误和偏差。
Okay. One of the most vexing data quality problems encountered in forecasting is the obstacle presented by government supplied data, which are often late and inaccurate.
政府供应数据带来的障碍，这些数据往往迟缓且不准确。
Okay. So to overcome forecasting problems caused by error and bias,
错误和偏差，
a variety of forecast methods can be employed. So some forecast techniques are basically quantitative, 定量的, while others are largely qualitative, 定性的. Okay? 定量的还是定性的. So these are the two main branches. These are the two main branches of forecasting techniques in managerial economics.
这是管理经济学中预测技术的两个主要分支。
Okay. So there are broad categories of forecasting techniques. All we will be discussing tonight are the four main broad categories of forecasting techniques that managers use.
我们今晚将要讨论的只是经理们使用的4大类预测技术。
Okay, so you have the qualitative analysis. Another that is usually used in sales is the trend analysis and projection.
趋势分析和预测，
And then we have the exponential smoothing. 秩序平滑. Am I correct?
指数平滑，
指数. Okay. And last, 最后是 econometric methods. 质量经济学方法. So these are the four forecasting techniques. Many consider economic forecasting as an art and a science.
许多人认为经济预测是一门艺术和一门科学。
Many people do not understand why disagreement among forecasting economists is common. We often see many different points of view regarding between economists.
我们经常看到经济学家的许多不同观点。
And why this disagreement? 为什么 this agreement can produce divergent economic forecasts? 不同的经济预测 Okay, so this is one of the biggest problems that the economists encounter.
经济学家的遭遇
Okay, so these concerns reflect too little appreciation of the difficulty of economic forecasting. In the real world, ceteris paribus or all else held equal. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term ceteris paribus.
Cater's paribus
Okay, doesn't hold very often, if ever, in the real world. 正是时节 Okay, so to forecast GDP, for example, one must be able to accurately predict the future. Accurately predict the future patterns of government spending, tax and monetary policy, consumer and business spending, weather, and many others.
"准确预测政府支出、税收和货币政策、消费者和企业支出、天气等未来模式。"
Okay, so although typical patterns can be inferred on the basis of past trends, 过去的储蓄 Okay, past trends, an unexpected drop, some natural disasters, 自然灾害 Okay, such as an unexpected drought, winter storm, or labor strike can disrupt any economic activity and even upset the accuracy of any economic forecasts.
干旱、冬季风暴或劳工罢工可能会扰乱任何经济活动，甚至会破坏任何经济预测的准确性。
Okay, so in the light of the uncertainties involved, it seems reasonable that different forecasting economists will accord or have different conclusions to a wide variety of economic influences.
鉴于所涉及的不确定性，不同的预测经济学家对各种经济影响做出或得出不同的结论，似乎是合理的。
As mentioned previously, there are many variables that can affect forecasts. Thus producing different results or opinions.
如前所述，有许多变量会影响经济预测，产生不同的结果或意见。
Okay, so forecasters' judgment is reflected not only in the interpretation. 解释 that they give to the data generated by complex computer models, but also in the models themselves. So even what they're using affects the results of the data of forecasts. Okay, so I'll give you time to read. Computers may generate economic forecasts, but they do so on the basis of programs written by economists.
计算机我生成经济预测，但它们是根据经济学家编写的程序进行的。
Okay, so computer-generated economic forecasts are only as sophisticated as the data employed, model analyzed, and subsequent analysis. Okay. Given the criticism often aimed at the forecasters, it is ironic to note that the success of economic forecasting is responsible, at least in part, for some of its failures.
鉴于经常针对预测者的批评，具有讽刺意味的是，经济预测的成功至少部分负责，这是其失败的4首歌。
Therefore, we can consider economic forecast as neither a failure or a success. It establishes both sides of the spectrum.
因此，我们可以将经济预测视为既不是失败，也不是成功。它建立了光谱的两边。
Okay. So users have come to expect a nearly unattainable level of forecast accuracy. We cannot achieve perfection, but we strive to achieve it.
我们无法达到完美，但我们努力实现它。
Okay, so this is the forecaster's dilemma. The future as we know it doesn't exist. In fact, it cannot. 我们所知道的未来开不存在，事实上大不可能存在。Okay? So that is the biggest dilemma in doing 那个economic forecasting. 经济预测 Okay. So this is actually a short journal. So this is the source, Takashimo Chizuki and Eric Panner. So this is the article. Sony seeks a comeback with the help of ex-rivals. Wall Street Journal, 4月30日2015年. And here's the website from Wall Street Journal. Okay, so forecast techniques. Let's return to the topic. So the best forecast method for any particular task depends on the nature of the forecasting problem. The forecast method is not a one-size-fits-all. There is a specific forecasting method for each scenario or problem.
预测方法不是一刀切的，对于每个场景或问题都有特定的预测方法。
So it's always worth considering the distance into the future, the time horizon, 时间范围, the time horizon that one must forecast. Okay? the lead time available for making decisions.
可用于做出决策的提前期。
The level of accuracy, 准确性,
准确性、
准确性. Okay. The accuracy, the quality of data, 质量, of the quality of data available for analysis, the stochastic or deterministic nature of forecast relations.
预测关系的随机或确定性。
And the costs and benefits. 成本和收益.
成本和收益
Okay, associated with the forecasting problem. Okay. So trend analysis, market experiments. Trend analysis, market experiments, consumer surveys, and the leading indicator approach to forecasting are well suited for short-term projections.
趋势分析、市场实验、消费者调查和预测的领先指标方法非常适合短期预测。
Okay, so forecasting with complex econometric models and systems of simultaneous equations has proven somewhat more useful for long-run forecasting. 长期预测. Okay, so typically, the greater the level of sophistication, the greater the cost.
复杂程度越高，成本越高。
Okay. If the required level of accuracy is low, then you may select less sophisticated methods to provide the minimal adequate results at cheaper cost.
您可以选择不太复杂的方法，以更便宜的成本提供最小的足够结果。
Okay. So users have come to expect a nearly unattainable level of forecast accuracy. At the same time, users forget that forecasts can by themselves have important economic consequences.
用户忘记了预测本身会产生重要的经济后果。
So first, you have the qualitative analysis. So it is an intuitive approach to forecasting that can be useful if it allows for systematic collection of data from unbiased and informed opinion. Okay, so there are two types or two major branches of qualitative analysis. We have the expert opinion and the survey techniques.
我们有专家意见和调查技巧。
Okay, so for the expert opinion, it is a belief or an interpretation by specialists with experience in a specific area. Okay, so usually when we ask expert opinions, it's hard to rebut their statements because they are, of course, experts in that topic. On the other hand, survey techniques generally use interviews or 采访,
采访
okay, or mailed questionnaires. But now, usually, nowadays, these surveys are usually done via the internet. That they ask, 他们问那个公司 government agencies, 政府机构, okay, and even individuals. Current, okay, about their future plans or 未来计划. Now, for the expert opinion, it's further divided into subcategories.
因此，以下是专家意见的子类别。
Okay, so we have first the personal insight, 个人见解, 见解, sorry, 见解, and then next is the final consensus, 最后公识, 公识, and last is the Delphi method, 第二幅, okay, 第二幅法. 对不起, I mispronounced that, 第二幅法. So for the personal insight, you have this one. So an informed individual uses personal or company experience.
个人或公司经验
Okay, as a basis for developing future expectations. 未来预期.
未来预期
Okay. For the final consensus, on the other hand, it assumes that several experts
几位专家
can arrive at forecasts that are superior to those that individuals generate. Therefore, final consensus is a an assumption that more heads are better than one.
"因此，最终的共识是假设更多的头比一个好。
Okay, whereas the Delphi method uses forecasts from an independent analysis of expert opinion. Okay? So these are the three subcategories of expert opinion. Now, we have this one, which is the linear trend analysis. Okay, so trend analysis, market experiments, consumer surveys, and the leading indicator approach. So, 一二三四, okay? To forecasting are well suited for the short-term projections. So these four. Forecasting with complex econometric models and systems of simultaneous equations has proven somewhat more useful for long-run forecasting. So next, for the survey techniques, as already mentioned, they are interview or mail questionnaire. Okay. 问卷.
问卷
Okay. Approach to forecasting. So survey information may be all that is available. Huh? This is the easiest forecasting technique because it is always available in most situations.
这是最简单的预测技术，因为它在大多数情况下始终可用。
Although surveys sometimes serve as an alternative to quantitative forecasting techniques, they frequently supplement rather than replace the quantitative analysis.
虽然有时可以作为定量预测技术的替代方案，但它们经常补充，而不是取代定量分析。
Okay, so that's what happens. So surveys can never replace quantitative analysis. However, it can be considered as the next best thing. A substitute or an alternative, but not the ideal one.
调查永远无法取代定量分析，但是它可以被认为是下一个最好的东西，
Okay.
替代品或替代品，但不是理想的替代品。
So for survey techniques, their value stems from two influences. First, a hard to quantify psychological element. Psychological element.
心理因素
心理因素. It is inherent in most economic behavior. Some economists consider that behavior affects our economic decisions.
一些经济体认为行为会影响我们的经济决策。
This is why surveys and other qualitative methods are well suited for picking up this phenomenon. Surveys reflect the opinions of people and not just the figures, but also the reasoning behind their decision. Choices.
调查反映了人们的意见，不仅反映了数字，还反映了选择背后的原因。
Okay, so second, quantitative models generally assume stable consumer tastes. Okay. Hindi siya tastes. Preferences.
消费者偏好
不是口味呢？对不起，这是preferences. 偏好. Okay, so this is a wrong translation. Okay, so if tastes are actually changing, 如果偏好 are changing, survey data can suggest the nature and direction of such changes in preferences.
调查数据可以表明消费者偏好中这种变化的性质和方向。
So next is the trend analysis. Trend analysis and projection.
趋势分析和预测。
So it is based on the premise that future economic performance follows an established historical pattern. So trends in economics data, it is the, okay, so here are the three types. The three subcategories of trend analysis and projection includes trends in economic data, linear trend analysis, and growth trend analysis.
趋势分析和预测的三个子类别包括趋势和经济数据、线性趋势分析和增长趋势分析。
Okay, so 分析. Okay, so here are the three types of trend analysis. Now, for the trends in economic data, it is a predication on the assumption that historical relationships will continue into the future. All such methods use time series data.
这是基于历史关系将持续到未来的假设的预测。
Okay.
所有这些方法都使用时间序列数据。
Now, for the linear trend analysis, it assumes a constant period by period unit change in an important economic variable over time.
不断，再见，重要经济变量随时间变化的单位变化。
Sorry. 对不起。Okay, this is the correct one.
逐个时期的恒定，单位在重要经济变量中随时间的变化。
Okay. 随时间的变化. Okay, that's a great word. And last is the growth trend analysis. It assumes a constant percentage change over time. That means it's not reflective of what's in the past, but there is a considerable percentage of increase or decrease. Okay. So I'll just let you read this one.
"假设变化百分比不变。
Okay, so it's a little bit different from the text, but I think that's all right. So for trend analysis, you have the secular trends, cyclical fluctuation, and seasonality. Okay. For the secular trend,
长期趋势，
okay, it's a little bit different, but I think it's just the same. So it is the long run pattern of increase or decrease in a series of economic data. Okay. Now, for the cyclical fluctuation, it describes the rhythmic variation in economic series.
经济系列中的节奏变化
That is due to a pattern of expansion or contraction in the overall economy.
经济扩张或收缩
Now, for seasonality, it is a rhythmic annual pattern in sales or profit caused by weather, habit, or social custom.
由天气习惯或社会习俗引起的有节奏的年度销售或利润模式。
Okay. So trend projection is a predication on the assumption that it will continue into the future. All methods use time series data. Weekly, monthly, or annual series of data on sales and costs, personal income, population, labor costs, participation rates, and GDP are all examples of economic time series.
所有方法都使用时间序列数据，每周、每月或每年一系列的销售和成本、个人收入、人口、劳动力参与率和 GDP 数据都是经济时间序列的例子。
So the linear trend analysis is used to impose a line of best fit. 最合适的产品线 okay, to time series historical data. Okay. So I'll show you a sample of what we mentioned of secular trend, cyclical fluctuation, and seasonal. So time series characteristics, secular trend and cyclical variation in women's clothing sales. And the second graph will feature seasonal pattern and random fluctuations.
季节性模式和随机波动。
Okay, for letter A, you will see the cyclical pattern in sales varies significantly from the normal secular trend. This is our picture. Oh, okay. So this is a linear trend analysis. So table 6.1. So it shows a linear relation between sales and time over the 1985 up until 2014 period.
1985年至2014年期间，销售额与时间之间的线性关系。
So this one is the secular trend. As you can see, the secular trend, in the secular trend, the sales continuously increases as the years go by.
在长期趋势中，随着岁月的流逝，销售额不断增加。
So as you can see on the X-axis, we have the years, and on the Y-axis, we have the sales. Okay. Ano siya? Sales, years. Okay. We'll cover that. Sales, and then years. Okay. 年下 or 年 can be either of the two. So you can see for the secular trend, it's rising, but for the cyclical, you will notice for the cyclical, there is a rise and fall of the profits.
对于周期性，利润有上升和下降。
Okay. Now, this is a continuation for the letter B, which is the seasonal pattern and random fluctuations. So you can see we still have on the x-axis, we have months. And on the y-axis, we have the sales.
在 X 轴上，我们有月份；在 Y 轴上，我们有销售额。
There are many elements in this graph. You have the random fluctuations, the Easter peak, seasonal pattern, autumn peak, and the long run trend. Okay.
此图中有许多元素，你有随机波动、复活节高峰、季节性模式、秋季高峰和长期跋涉。
But you can see the secular line in this one. This is where the secular and the cyclical meet. Okay.
这是长期和周期性相遇的地方。
So this is so despite the fact that the cyclical has changes in the lines, and then the secular is just one straight line, they still meet at a common junction.
尽管周期性线有变化，然后长期只是一条直线，但请仍然在一个共同的交汇处相遇。
Okay. So we do not have any computations in this subject, but I just want you to see the effects of the cyclical and the secular lines.
我们没有任何计算和这个主题，但我只想让你看到周期性和长期性的影响。
Okay. So now let's focus on the business cycles. Okay. So what is a business cycle? A business cycle is comprised of concerted cyclical upswings and downswings in the broad measures of economic activity, such as output, employment, income, and sales.
商业周期由产出、就业收入和销售等经济活动广泛指标的波动和下行的协调周期组成。
Okay, so the mention, the output, employment, income, and sales are just examples of measures of economic activity. So the alternating phases of the business cycles are expansions, and contractions.
扩张和收缩，
Okay, or sometimes the contractions are also known as recessions.
衰退，
Right. Okay, so this one. So that is also known as the recessions. Okay. So here are some of the economic indicators. So first, what are economic indicators? These are data that describe projected, current, or past economic activity. Jingji 活动. Okay. On the other hand, a composite index. A composite index is a weighted average of leading, coincident, or lagging economic indicators.
综合指数是领先的重合或滞后经济指标的加权平均值。
Okay. Keep in mind that the weights or standardization factors used in the construction of these composite indices vary over time. That means that the leading, coincident, and lagging economic indicators will always constantly change and not remain constant.
这意味着领先的硬币学生和滞后的经济指标将始终不断变化，而不是保持不变。
Okay. So what are the differences between the three? Leading versus lagging versus coincident indicators. What is the difference between these three indicators?
领先指标、滞后指标和重合指标，这三个指标有什么区别？
Okay. So first, lagging, leading indicators are considered to point toward future events. Lagging indicators are seen as confirming a pattern that is currently in progress. Last but not the least, coincident indicators occur in real life. and clarify the state of the economy. See there.
Leading in
领先指标被认为指向未来事件，滞后指标被视为确认了目前正在进行的模式。最后，但并非最不重要的一点是，重合指标实时发生并阐明经济状况。
Okay. So the Conference Board's Index of Leading Economic Indicators. Leading economic indicators.
主要经济指标
Okay, is designed to signal peaks and troughs. Peaks and troughs in the business cycle.
商业周期的高峰和低谷。
Okay, so the LEI okay, is derived from 10 leading indicators, 4 coincident indicators, and 7 lagging indicators. So what are these 10, 4, and 7 items?
那么这10个4和7个项目是什么？
Okay, so for that, I'll show you. So the LEI is a useful barometer of economic activity over 3 to 6 months. 36个月. Okay. So here are the 10 leading indicators.
10项领先指标
Okay, so the average work week of production workers in manufacturing. Average work week of production workers in manufacturing.
制造业生产工人的平均工作周。
Average initial weekly claims for unemployment insurance.
“均初始
Okay. The new orders for consumer goods. Sorry. New orders for consumer goods and materials adjusted for inflation.
消费品和材料的新订单根据通货膨胀进行调整。
Vendor performance.
供应商绩效。
New orders for non-military capital goods adjusted for inflation. New building permits issued. Index of stock prices. The money supply, for those who took economics, macroeconomics, M2, adjusted for inflation. And spread between rates on a 10-year treasury bond and index of consumer expectations. So these are some of the 10 leading indicators.
这些是10个领先指标。
Okay, so that's the 10 leading indicators. I'll just show it for a while. Okay, so there you go. Now, for the 4 coincident indicators, we have manufacturing and trade sales, employees on non-agricultural payrolls, industrial production, and personal income minus the transfer payment.
制造业和贸易销售、非农就业人数、工业生产和个人收入减去转移支付。
Okay. Now, last one. These are the lagging indicators. Okay. So we have the average duration of unemployment, inventories to sales ratio, manufacturing and trade, change in labor cost per unit of output in manufacturing, average prime rate, commercial and industrial loans, consumer installment credit to personal income ratio, and the changes in consumer prices index for services. So these are the 7 lagging indicators. Now, for the economic recession. What is an economic recession?
什么是经济衰退？
Okay. So the National Bureau of Economic Research, or NBER, which officially declares recessions, defines a recession. A recession is a significant decline in economic activity spread across the economy.
经济衰退是整个经济体经济活动的显著下降。
Okay. Lasting more than a few months. Normally visible in real GDP.
通常可见于实际国内生产总值。
Real income, employment, Okay, so 9月，就业，对不起，
就业、
9月 September. Okay. 9月 industrial production and wholesale retail sales. Okay. 以发零售销售. Okay. So this is the definition of recession. Okay. Economic recession. So although many economic recessions consist of 2 or more quarters of declining real GDP, it is most accurate to describe recession as a period of diminishing economic activity rather than a period of diminished economic activity.
因此，尽管许多经济衰退由实际 GDP 下降的2个或2个以上季度组成，但最准确的是将会议描述为经济活动减少的时期，而不是经济活动减少的时期。
Okay, so it is considered as a period of diminishing economic activity. Okay, so that is the definition of economic recession. Okay, diminishing economic activity. So a recession begins, okay, after the economy reaches a peak of output and employment and ends as the economy reaches its trough. So usually when you reach the top, this is the time that you will hit the recession. Okay. Okay. So the period between a month of peak economic activity and the subsequent low point defines the length of a recession.
1个月的经济活动高峰期和随后的低点之间的时期定义了经济衰退的长度。
So during recessions, economic growth is falling, or the economy is actually contracting.
在经济衰退期间，经济增长正在下降，因为经济实际上正在收缩。
Okay, so it's either 下降国家地位 or contracting. Okay, so yeah, Pao. Contracting. So that is one of the possible scenarios in an economic recession. Okay. Now, for the last topic, I guess there might be a little bit more, is the exponential smoothing. So exponential smoothing is a variety of averaging techniques that can be used in order to predict the unit sales growth, revenue, costs, and profit performance.
指数平滑是各种平均技术，可用于预测单位销售增长、收入、成本和利润表现。
Okay. Okay, so it is a method for forecasting trends in unit sales, again, as mentioned already, unit costs, wage expenses, and many more. This technique identifies historical patterns of trend or seasonality in the data and then extrapolates these patterns forward into the forecast period.
该技术识别数据中趋势或季节性的历史模式，然后将这些模式向前推断到预测期。
Okay, so 历史模式 okay, or seasonality. Okay. 季节性 okay, and then its accuracy depends on the degree to which established patterns of change are apparent and constant over time. The more regular the pattern of change in any given data series, the easier it is to forecast.
任何给定数据序列中的变化模式越规则，就越容易预测。
Okay. So the types of exponential smoothing. The three types of exponential smoothing include single exponential smoothing, double exponential smoothing, and triple exponential smoothing.
三种类型的指数平滑包括单指数平滑、双指数平滑和三众指数平滑。
So let's start first with the single exponential smoothing. Okay. We're about to finish. Huh? So single exponential smoothing is a time series forecasting method for univariate data without a trend or seasonality.
因此，单指数平滑是一种时间序列预测方法，用于没有趋势或季节性的善变量数据。
Okay. Right. Without a trend or seasonality. Okay. What is siya? Okay. So that's it. There you go. Okay. It requires a single parameter called alpha. Okay. Also called the smoothing factor or coefficient. Okay. 平滑系数
平滑系数
对不起. Okay. So the sole regular component is the level of the forecast data series. It is implicitly assumed that the data consists of irregular fluctuations. Okay. Irregular fluctuations around a constant or very slowly changing level.
在恒定或非常缓慢变化的水平周围。
Okay. It is appropriate for forecasting sales. In mature markets with stable activity. It is inappropriate for forecasting in markets that are rapidly growing or are seasonal.
"它适用于预测销售稳定活动。它不适合在快速增长或季节性的市场中进行预测。
Okay, so each smoothened estimate of a given level is computed as a weighted average of the current observation and the past data. Each weight decreases in an exponential pattern.
每个权重都以指数模式减小。
So the rate of decrease in the influence of past levels depends on the size of the smoothing parameter that controls the model's relatively sensitivity to newer versus older data. Okay.
因此，快速水平影响的降低率取决于平滑参数的大小、 该参数控制模型对较新数据与旧数据的相对敏感性。
And another is the larger the value of the smoothing parameter, the more is the emphasis placed on recent observations rather than the distant observations. Runner, if the smoothing parameter is very small, if the smoothing parameter is very small, then a large number of data points receive nearly equal weights.
如果平滑参数非常小，则大量数据点接收的权重几乎相等。
So in this case, the forecast model displays a long memory of past values. Okay. Okay. Now for the double exponential smoothing, the data are assumed to consist of fluctuations about a level that is changing with some constant or slowly drifting linear trend.
假定数据由水平的波动组成，该水平随着某个恒定或缓慢漂移的线性趋势而变化。
So in addition to the alpha, you also have the beta. In addition to the alpha parameter for controlling the smoothing factor for the level, an additional smoothing factor is added to control the decay of the influence of the change in the trend.
除了用于控制水平平滑因子的 alpha 参数和额外的平滑因子之外，还添加了用于控制趋势变化影响的衰减。
Okay, so this trend is called beta. Beta. So, the double exponential smoothing is appropriate for forecasting sales in established markets with stable growth.
双指数平滑适用于预测稳定增长的成熟市场的销售额。
However, it is inappropriate in either stable or rapidly growing markets.
但是，这在稳定或快速增长的市场中都是不合适的。
Okay. So, the double exponential smoothing uses a smoothed estimate of the trend component as well as the level component to produce forecasts.
双指数平滑使用趋势分量和水平分量的平滑估计来生成预测。
So the current smoothed level is added to a linear trend to forecast future values. The updated value of the smoothed level is computed as the weighted average of new data and the best estimate of new level based on old data.
平滑和级别的更新值计算为新数据的加权平均值和基于旧数据的新级别的最佳估计值。
Okay. And last one is the triple exponential smoothing. The triple exponential smoothing adds support for seasonality to the univariate time series.
三众指数平滑增加了对善变量时间序列的季节性支持。
So, okay, so here, the difference between the single, double, and triple is that the triple not only has alpha, not only beta, but also gamma. A new parameter is added called gamma that controls the influence on the seasonal component.
添加了一个名为 gamma 的新参数，用于控制对季节性成分的影响。
Okay. The triple exponential smoothing is the most advanced version of exponential smoothing. And through configuration, okay, it can also develop double and single exponential smoothing models.
Triple X 养老金平滑。
什么 triple X? I got it. Okay, so there you go. Okay. So what are the practical uses of the exponential smoothing?
那么指数平滑的实际用途是什么？
Okay. It is important to remember about exponential smoothing or any forecast method. Is that the choice of an appropriate forecasting technique depends on the pattern data that is to be forecasted.
重要的是要记住指数平滑或任何预测方法，适当的预测技术的选择取决于要预测的模式数据。
And econometric forecasting. So econometric forecasting combines economic theory with statistical tools to predict economic relations.
计量经济学预测将经济理论与统计工具相结合。
And the forecast reliability. The forecast must be adequately assessed prior to the implementation of any successful forecasting program.
在实施任何成功的预测计划之前，必须对预测进行充分评估。
So a given forecast model is often estimated by a test group of data and evaluated by using the forecast group data. No forecasting assignment is complete until reliability has been quantified and evaluated. This means that the forecast must first be evaluated and test run before it becomes the choice forecasting method for implementation.
这意味着必须首先评估预测并测试预测，然后才能使其成为实施的选择预测方法。
The sample mean forecast error is one useful measure of predictive capability.
样本均值预测误差是衡量预测能力的一个有用指标。
And the appropriate forecasting technique depends upon the distance into the future being forecast, the lead time available, the accuracy required, the quality of data, and the nature of the economic relations involved in the forecasting problem.
请打开相机查看我们通常的班级照片，该照片将提交。
Okay, so I think it's all right. Eric, are you there? Steve, 2、3、
刘月华，
我在，
在。
我在。
快嗨破不在。Thank you， 谢谢。Okay.
Hello, Professor.
Yes.
One question per group or 5 questions everyone needs to answer.
You will just submit by group, so you can help each other. I will send the questions also tonight. Okay. Happy weekend, everyone. Enjoy your time with the family. Thank you.
最后，我会发送问题，也今晚快乐周末，大家享受你的时间，谢谢。
Good night.
Good night.
Happy weekend.
Thank you.
周末快乐。好不好？
周末快乐。
好，对。Okay. Good night. Bye. We meet again on Monday, 星期一。很可爱的孩子啊。Okay. Bye bye.